Hi, I'm Joanna Garcia, president of CEC6. I did speak in the event, but I want to bring up some other points. The majority of the children in our public schools, more than 80% of them are English language learners, more than 80% of them are low income. This means that they live in housing where the parents are struggling to survive and are living check to check. For this reason, as a CEC member, I am very, very concerned about our parents and our children being at risk of displacement and the kind of instability that will lead to their displacement, to worried about having to move from the neighborhood that they know that has embraced them, and also what this does to their learning, especially when they also go to school in overcrowded classrooms. So I ask you to consider the infrastructure. The other issues in terms of living in a low-income environment is that we have been lacking in terms of investments in our neighborhood. So infrastructure-wise, we have issues with our gas lines. We're always at risk every summer of brownouts. The other issue that I want to bring is, of course, public transportation. With the influx of thousands of new residents, it is definitely going to have an impact on our train system. And one of the things that I think has not been discussed is that with the luxury housing that is being projected to be built, with luxury housing, you bring people of a certain income where their preference for public education is not public education. They're actually going to go look to private education, private schools, or go out of the district to wealthier schools. What that's going to do is further segregate our system, and our system is already the most segregated New York City system in the whole United States. So I ask you to consider, just like these interests will prefer big box retail chain stores, these interests will also prefer privatization of education. Vote no on the plan. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Michael Scott. I've been an Inwood resident since 1985. I previously lived in Midtown Manhattan until the rents became so high that I couldn't afford to live there. I'm an artist. I'm a working actor. Inwood is a wonderful, homogeneous neighborhood that's safe and very productive, and one of the few places that you can still live in Manhattan with a low income. I just recently got off a 15-month round the world tour doing West Side Story, and I saw how there all around the world in all the major cities are these huge ghost buildings, luxury apartments that look very much like the ones down in Midtown Manhattan that are empty. And multinationals are using them as bank accounts because they don't believe in the financial systems anymore. But in each area that these luxury high-rises are set up, what happens is all of the people that live around them get displaced because they can't afford to compete with the luxury high-rise prices. I'm very worried about that. We need affordable housing like in Singapore, where the government takes a big hand in it and there's zero homelessness. And you have a population that, now granted, Singapore is a separate country and it's easier to do, but it has a great model in terms of keeping homelessness down, giving everyone a decent standard of living, and that's what I'd like to see continue in Inwood. All right, that's my 10, 6, 7, and thank you so much for listening.
Oh. Okay. So you just tell me when to start. Beautiful Inwood provides a home for wild turkeys, hawks, owls, eagles, and it provides a home for me. Inwood provides a big sky that you can't get anywhere else in New York City, and light that comes through all of our windows. It's one of the few places where high-rises don't obscure our vision of nature, and I think that's extraordinarily important for our society, and I would like that to be preserved above all. Thank you very much.
My name is James Momani, and I own a property right on Broadway. I believe I support the rezoning. However, I believe it should be done right. So I'm for rezoning, but I support that people should be taken care of and it should be done right. Thank you.
Huh? 1, 2, 3. My name is Katie Weaver. I'm concerned about the people who will be displaced and how much time they will have in order to relocate. And they will not be able to come back to this community, I'm sure, because there won't be enough affordable housing preserved in the new buildings that are going up. As a senior citizen who's lived here for 27 years, it's concerning, and it's very concerning that big money is now taking over every place in Manhattan. When I lived in Park West in the 70s, Hemsley wanted to he said that all people who made less than $40,000 should move out of Manhattan. I think his ghost has been whispering into de Blasio's ear to get that dream to come true. Because once they go, once we move out, we definitely won't be coming back. And our communities are disrupted. We've been here for so many years. Some people have been here 40, 50, 60 years. Their community will completely be destroyed because they'll try to find someplace else that they can rent, and probably in somewhere far, far away from their friends and family.
Just hours earlier in the chambers of the City Council, Council members voted into law Intro 607, which specifically addressed racial segregation in housing and required that any plan developed by the city pursuant to Section 26-2102 of the Administrative Code that provides for the creation or preservation of affordable housing shall provide for such creation or preservation in a manner that affirmatively furthers fair housing, combating discrimination, and that overcomes pattern of segregation, and fostering and maintaining compliance with civil rights and fair housing laws. But yet, here we are today to ask the Borough President of Manhattan to say no, because the plan that the city has presented does not include any of what we just heard before. We are a people in a neighborhood of color, and we're here to present ourselves to demand that the administration halts a social engineering program that is accelerating and intensifying the racial segregation of the city, uprooting and displacing thousands of poor, non-white families in a march to gentrify specific neighborhoods targeted for occupation by a wealthier class of mainly white folks. So, after decades of municipal disinvestment, deliberate benign neglect, marginalization, and being victims of a planned shrinkage policy, which holds that it is unwise and inefficient for an administration to invest in the poorest communities, we, the residents of these communities, welcome the investments and revitalization and redevelopment that are supposed to be coming our way. But we say that it must be for us and not for the people who will be replacing us after the city has displaced us and driving us into areas that are probably worse than the ones we have been forced out of. We are aware that the city has targeted mainly communities of color for rezonings. This is not good. And not in communities where no housing affordability to the overwhelming majority of the city's residents. And we have seen where after rezoning, Greens Point, Williamsburg changed from a community that was almost 70% people of color in 2002 to a community that was almost white, 60% white in 2014, and the loss of more than 7,500 manufacturing jobs in just zip code alone, and thousands more in the Greenpoint, Williamsburg area. It was in the same park, in this Park Slope and Harlem. In Park Slope, the community was transformed from a mixed neighborhood to one that is almost totally white, and in Harlem, there was a similar population shift along with the loss of 630 small businesses within 1 year of the rezoning. And now 70% of the non-white families spend more than 40% of their income on rent, up from just over 27% before the rezoning.
And I'm very disappointed about the rezoning the sons. All sons is very disappointing because it's no favorable for the poor people. And it's going to despair small business, everything. And I don't know where it's going to moving to the people from New York City. This very, very poor moving. I'm very disappointed. Where is the politician? What can he do? Nothing for the people? I don't know. I think about it. City is going very, very down. That's what I can say.
One, two, three. How you doing? My name is Edwin Rosario Mazara, and I am here tonight because I wish to support my community and urge the Manhattan Borough's office to vote no on the rezoning plan. It's a plan that will definitely hurt all of us who have been residents in this community for years. I myself was born in Washington Heights. I was raised in Inwood. I went to school at PS 98. Then I went to school at IS 52. So I've been in this community for over 30 years now. And I would not like to see the human face of this community go away. And it's been going away slowly and surely thanks to these powers who have invested their money and their time to enforce a plan that's not beneficial to us who, without the help of the city, have been able to maintain this beautiful community, very modern, very beautiful for all to visit and love. So I urge dearly from my heart to all of those elected officials who wish to ram this rezoning plan down our throats to consider the fact that this beautiful community has been part of us and we have been part of it. And this plan would both tear us apart and take us away from our community. Thank you very much.
So I'm just here to talk about a few things that I wasn't able to mention in my last testimony in the last open house here in the schools. So the first is let's try to include a diversity of zoning options. You know, there's rules in different countries about zoning and what's allowed for the zoning of neighborhoods. For example, in Paris has different rules regarding heights within districts that may be historic but are just of the old city, that they can't pass, you know, the 6-story limit. And that's uniform, which creates, you know, a neighborhood cohesion that might be worth looking at. In Germany, the rules are also the 100-year rule, which just means that if a building is built within a zone, the developer can't tear down the building in 30 years or 40 years to rebuild and rezone to a higher height because it allows it to. So it's just creating a sense of sustainability, which means that we can then think about actual housing that fits into the neighborhood and not just like for the sake of, you know, profit. Another interesting initiative is here in New York City. De Blasio is actually experimenting with inserting housing that is not affordable, but trying to integrate it with NYCHA housing projects that is trying to also kind of diversify the idea of like socioeconomic backgrounds and integrate people rather than stagnate and push people into corners and that kind of thing. Another thing worth looking at. Another thing might be legislative guarantees for existing residents against and educational campaigns to let residents know about what they should do when this, potentially could pass through as a zoning regulation. Other things to consider: trees are a good indicator of how high a building should be built, in the sense of that's a comfortable scale for a person, right? So trees are kind of a good indicator. If it's taller than the tree, it begins to feel uncomfortable, because towers, in some exceptions, may feel better or worse if they're clustered together, but for a human scale figure, it might feel different. So trees, think about that. Neighborhood cohesion, and sometimes, relying on formulas of urban development and what makes economic sense also is, something that might not make sense in the neighborhood scale. Should it be more investigated? There are areas in Inwood which should be changed. For example, at the very tip of Manhattan, there's no life there, but it should be looked accordingly within the whole of the neighborhood, not as kind of dumping towers there. The last thing I want to say is that there are existing developments that already follow the current zoning. For example, the Stack on 204 and Broadway and Seaman, 192nd Street and Broadway, which is an older development, and then behind the Stack, there's already a building going up that follows the current 6-story zoning. So it can work. It's just we have to kind of have a discussion about what we can do to, cater to this growing discussion and problem, and potential solutions. So thank you.
What's that? Test on 1, 2, 3. Good. All right. Okay. Great. So I should start? Okay. Hi, I'm Amanda Sullivan. I've lived in Inwood since 1997. I'm a mother of 3 kids, 2 of which are still currently in District 6 schools. We use the library all the time. I see no reason. It's been renovated twice since I've lived here. It's excellent and award-winning. Our school is in a district that is in part of what would be rezoned. It's also a school that now there's a wait list for it. We beat the entire city for our test scores last year. So I don't know why. I mean, an improvement. I don't know why we'd want to destroy our school in this renovation or whatever, rezoning. Also, you're going to take away light from low-income people and give it to the rich people by building tall houses right on the river. We don't have enough buses or A trains as it is, so I'd like to see those addressed before we add a whole bunch more people here. And what else did I want to say? I have a whole lot I want to say. I also grew up on the Upper West Side, and I don't want Inwood to go the way of the Upper West Side. I don't want it to be gap, gap, gap. Thank you.
Aramis Sarmiento. I would like to say a few words about rezoning. I don't like the rezoning because it makes discrimination against the buildings around. So I support the law that that go against the rezoning. So I am 100% against rezoning. So that's all I have to say. Thanks a trillion.
Hola, mi nombre es María Rodríguez, soy residente de Inwood. El desplazamiento está sucediendo y necesitamos que la ciudad tome medidas urgentes para asegurar que Inwood siga siendo un vecindario con precios asequibles. Las propuestas que ofrece la ciudad son fundamentales para preservar y ampliar las viviendas asequibles en la comunidad de Inwood. No podemos confrontar la gran creciente necesidad de viviendas asequibles sin cambiar las normas de zonificación obsoletas o asegurar que la nueva construcción incluya viviendas para bajos ingresos. No hacer nada significa seguir perdiendo asequibilidad. Por esa razón, le pido a la presidenta que apoye el plan de la ciudad. Gracias.
Okay. Si no podemos ser parte de la solución, no seamos parte del problema. Los cambios de nuestra comunidad nos afectan directamente a las minorías y a las personas de bajos recursos. Y estas personas no están haciendo acto de presencia, ni están formando parte de las decisiones que se están tomando, no porque no se les da la voz. Mucha gente aún ni se entera de los planes que hay en nuestra comunidad. Se vienen a enterar cuando ya los proyectos están en marcha. Hay muchos cambios que nuestra comunidad necesita y uno de ellos es vivienda asequible, espacio comunitario, servicios para personas de bajos recursos, y este proyecto nos ofrece esto y más. Hay algunas quejas que son válidas. Una de ellas es que nuestra comunidad necesita escuelas nuevas para cubrir la cantidad de niños nuevos que vendrán. Sí, nuestra comunidad necesita escuelas nuevas, pero la persona responsable, el departamento responsable de crear y construir escuelas nuevas son el Departamento de Educación y el Departamento de Construcción de Escuelas en conjunto. No los departamentos encargados de hacer este edificio en particular, ni tampoco el departamento de las NYPL, que es la librería del Estado de Nueva York, las librerías de la Ciudad de Nueva York. El cambio no es malo por el simple hecho de ser cambio. Necesitamos personas que den una razón legítima por la cual están en contra de este proyecto. Es un proyecto que no es perfecto, pero por eso se le está dando la oportunidad a la comunidad de expresar sus preocupaciones e ideas. No digas que no por decir que no. Provee razones, provee opciones y provee soluciones. Infórmate y pregunta sobre tus derechos. Hay 3 tipos de personas que están involucrados en este proyecto. Los que les conviene el cambio porque sus intereses se ven directamente beneficiados. Los que les gusta mantenerse informados, aunque esto no les afecte directamente. Y los que, como yo, piensan en el futuro y en nuestra comunidad para que avance y que los cambios nos beneficien a los miembros actuales de nuestra comunidad. Recuerden, lo que no evoluciona, muere.
Hi there, my name is Chris Nickel, and I'm a resident of Inwood, and a member of Northern Manhattan is Not for Sale. And today I'd like to testify about environmental planning. 2 particular aspects. One is infrastructure, because as our dearly departed friend Obi Bing used to say, our infrastructure in Inwood is among the oldest subsurface infrastructure in the country. We're talking about electrical wires that are sometimes still coated in paper. We are basically a brownout for the entire city waiting to happen, and so it's really irresponsible for the city's plan to conservatively estimate an increase in 14,000 residents over the next 15 years without mandating any amount of infrastructural renovation that occur before the rezoning takes place. So I think it's really important that all of this infrastructure be overhauled immediately before we start new construction. And the second point is about environmental racism, because in our community, there's an increased amount of density that's being proposed for east of 10th Avenue. And if we take the city at its word, then it wants to increase the density of affordable housing in that area as well, but it's not mandating any environmental planning to mitigate the fact that that region is in a 100-year floodplain, which, when we think about the effects of climate change, could easily become more like a 4 or even a 5 or even a 4-year floodplain in the next 15 years. And so you're putting all of these people into affordable housing in units that are not going to be safe. So we really need the city to take this into account and do a better job of sound planning for us.
My name is Randy Marcus. I represent Dykeman Houses, the projects. Of course, we need affordable housing because the rents are sky high. We from the projects. We can't afford it if it go any higher, especially if we want to leave the projects. Second, the jobs. That's going to give to the community. The young guys don't have to be selling drugs, don't have to be on the corner. We can have them working. That's a big job, so that a lot of people are going to be working. A lot of kids off the corner. A quality of life for all of us. So, and you know you can't stop. We all know that you can't stop progress. As long as the progress is to help and uplift our community, we're 100% with it.
Domínguez, estoy hablando en nombre de la comunidad envejeciente. Aquí todos esos gente que están ya mayores de edad, trabajaron, dieron su juventud, pagaron impuestos en este país, tienen que darle la oportunidad de seguir en su comunidad, que conocen sus vecinos, que están preocupados por ellos. Si un vecino no sale, yo salgo a averiguar qué pasa con ese vecino. Si me lo mandan para el Bronx, para Brooklyn, para otro sitio, yo no sé de qué son de esos vecinos. Van a morir de depresión, de un infarto de corazón, pues sacarlo de su comunidad. No estoy de acuerdo con eso, pero sí estoy de acuerdo de que nos superemos, de que hagan cosas nuevas para la comunidad. Ejemplo, la ciudad en la 207 se quemó un building. ¿Qué hizo la ciudad? Hicieron un edificio de 2 pisos. ¿Por qué no hicieron uno de 20 pisos ahí? Frente a la escuela Mi Amistad también hicieron un building nuevo, pero al lado en un solar vacío. ¿Por qué no juntaron esos 2 solares e hicieron un edificio de 30 pisos para dárselo a la comunidad? No, ahí hicieron un building que un apartamento de un cuarto de dormir cuesta $2,500. ¿Qué está pasando con eso? Que a nosotros no la van a subir porque ese building está más grande. Hay otro donde se quemó aquí en Nagley. ¿Por qué no construir un edificio ahí que está vacío? Aquí en Sherman hay otro edificio frente a la escuela que está ahí. ¿Por qué no cogieron esa parte ahí y construyeron un edificio grande? Hicieron uno chiquito. No, tienen que moverse y nosotros no nos vamos de aquí. Y aquí nos quedamos porque nos construyeron aquí. Nuestros familiares que nos trajeron aquí chiquitos. ¿Cómo nos van a sacar de aquí de la comunidad? Mis hijos que se criaron aquí. Y aquí va a ver yo mi nieto y mi bisnieto luchando por la comunidad, junto con todos mis vecinos, porque yo soy una guerrillera en eso. Me quisiera como agarrar que agarrarlo por el pescuezo que está diciendo todo eso. Eso es imposible. Nosotros estamos aquí y aquí hay mucha gente, ok, hay muchos delincuentes, pero habemos más que nos sumen a ver cuáles son los delincuentes. Habemos más trabajando y luchando por la comunidad que los delincuentes que hay. Y eso se ha visto en toda la comunidad del mundo, también en los judíos, en todas las otras nacionalidades. Hay gente que tiene problemas. Vamos a ayudarlo.
Pietro, this is something like a mugshot. Is that enough of this? Okay. I'm here to speak for people my age and older than I am who live in Inwood. It's a great neighborhood to live in. You can walk to the store, you can carry your bag up 5 flights of stairs, and you just do it. And you can take a walk in the park, and you're used to living here. There are people lived here for 30 and 40 years in apartments where there's no gas for 2 years. That's what we had. There's no heat, and people stay. And why do they stay? Because they're in a rent-stabilized apartment or an apartment with scree, if they have the guts to do that. And they say, I can manage. I'll cut down on everything because I've got a place to stay, and I know I can count on it. This rezoning has no consideration of the elders of this neighborhood, and they can't count on it at all. I went to East Harlem. I walked past all those buildings, condemned, and then I came upon a lot that had already been bulldozed. And at the end of the lot, there was one building. I went around, I looked at the door, and it said on the door, it is dangerous to live here. This rezoning makes Inwood dangerous for the older people who live here. Thank you.
I'm Paul Epstein, an Inwood resident. I submitted written testimony on many rezoning topics, but I want to focus my time now on how EDC's community engagement has been a sham. EDC always points to 2 years of engagement. They say informed their plan, but that's a complete sham. They knew what they wanted long before they made their plans public. Then they released their plans drip by drip, telling us each piece was in the response to the community, as if each piece was new. But just look at this map from EDC's EIS consultant's January 26 proposal. Look at it against the final map. It's so darn close. They had this map 17 months before they released significant portions of it to the public. The community response at a community board meeting was unanimously against the upland core boundaries and upzoning the commercial U. Upzoning the commercial U, for example, puts at risk most of our locally owned small businesses. But they did come back. But did they come back to the community groups to try to understand our objections and collaborate on a creative compromise? No, they didn't. All they did was, with no further engagement, they locked that plan in place and said, that's what's going to ULURP. And that was that. All their talk of engagement was phony. Instead, they made of any attempts to collaborate with the community. They approached engagement as a power play. EDC controlled the information. The community had to react and react again. In the end, giving the community a voice was never the point. It was all a sham because EDC totally disrespected the community. The borough president has no choice but to vote no and tell them to come back when they're ready to collaborate with us. Make sure you got that comparison.
As a 57-year resident of New York and a 30-year resident of Inwood, I feel quite certain that I speak for most of my neighbors in saying that this part of our city stands to lose considerably if the proposed rezoning takes place. Because a substantial part of Inwood is constituted of natural and man-made parks, it is a unique space in Manhattan. It has a limited population of both residents and businesses, and as a result, it has remained a quiet, pleasant place to live decade after decade. Rezoning in other parts of the city has dramatically increased traffic, population, crowding, noise, and stress. Escaping such stress each evening and on weekends has been vitally important for maintaining a good quality of life and general well-being. The proposed rezoning will increase the population considerably, which will dramatically alter the essence of our neighborhood. For many decades in our city, we have seen gentrification drive out anyone who is not financially well off, take away the local feeling, and reduce the pleasurable qualities of living in a neighborhood. Taller buildings create long shadows, less light, and impoverished views. More people in the same area make for more crowded streets and subways, more noise, a less affordable life, and consequently a reduction in the quality of life for everyone. Please let us retain one of the last genuine New York neighborhoods with its many charms and benefits. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on this very important issue.
I can go? All right. Hi, my name is Omar Green. I am a native New Yorker. I grew up in Chelsea, moved to Inwood recently, maybe 3 years ago, because it is the only neighborhood that retains the culture of a neighborhood in Manhattan. The upzoning is likely to make Inwood like the rest of Manhattan, which is a shame and a pity, not to mention the fact that this can displace a number of people who have lived here and who have made this community what it is. So I would like the community to retain the essence that drew me up here, and I think this rezoning, if it's done in such a sudden and drastic manner, will reduce the quality of life for myself and the people who have lived here for as many years as they have, for decades, if not more.
Today, in the chambers of City Council, council members met to vote into law Intro 607, which specifically addressed racial segregation in housing and required that any plan developed by the city pursuant to Section 26-2102 of the Administrative Code that provides for the creation or preservation of affordable housing shall provide for such creation or preservation in a manner that affirmatively furthers fair housing, combating discrimination, overcome patterns of segregation, and fostering and maintaining compliance with civil rights and fair housing laws. All we are doing is demanding that the city administration live up to this mandate and to provide for all residents, not just for the wealthier section of the population. We are demanding anti-harassment and anti-displacement safeguards to protect us from unscrupulous developers and landlords so that we can remain in our communities in truly affordable housing. We are demanding that the high unemployment rate be addressed by hiring locally. We are demanding that there be an infusion into our communities' economies by the procurement of goods and services from our local merchants and businesses. We are demanding that a city council member from this district extract from the administration clear commitments well before the final vote that will preserve the institutions of the current residents and provide the amenities for which we have been asking for so long, so that at long last we can begin to really enjoy the benefits of our tax dollars. Is this asking too much? Is the welfare of the people of color in this community so meaningless that we are not eligible for a decent community and neighborhood, but get the benefit, others get the benefit of our tax dollars to enjoy an enhanced lifestyle denied to us? Upper Manhattan can be the place where the historical patterns of gentrification stops. With the will to do what is right, what is moral, and what is just plain, simply human, we can show that New York City can truly be a diverse, mixed city where all of us can continue to live in spite of the differences in our incomes, race, ethnicity, and nationality. So we request that the borough president vote no to this version of the plan and keep saying no until and unless the plan is done over from scratch and includes the community's vision, concerns, and demands. Thank you.
2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. My name is Father Antonio Almonte, pastor of Our Lady Queen of Martyrs Church, and I'm also here as a representative of the Upper Manhattan Interfaith Leaders Coalition. Our Judeo-Christian tradition provides us the biblical mandate against unfair rent in Amos 5:11. You trample the poor, stealing their gain through taxes and unfair rent. Therefore, though you build beautiful stone houses, you will never live in them. The Upper Manhattan Interfaith Leaders Coalition has studied both the EDC's rezoning plan as well as alternative community plans. We respectfully express our concern that the EDC's rezoning plan in its current form will accelerate rather than mitigate displacement and gentrification. We are particularly concerned about the lack of meaningful community engagement in the planning process and concerned about the criteria used to define affordable housing in the city's plan. The affordability levels offered through mandatory inclusionary housing are not affordable to the majority of our congregants. We are also concerned about the lack of a plan for infrastructure, improvements to accommodate thousands of new residents in a community already underserved by decaying infrastructure. Despite the ADC's stated efforts to inform the community, many of our congregants still do not have a clear understanding of the city's plan. We are particularly concerned as the members of our congregations make up over 10,000 residents of Northern Manhattan. We therefore recommend invest in development of truly affordable housing through additional city subsidies and tax incentives to reach deeper affordability. Protect the existing rent-regulated housing stock by enforcing the rent laws and investing in programs that protect tenants from predatory loopholes. Encourage development of 100% affordable housing on public land. Issue a comprehensive infrastructure plan to accommodate the anticipated population increases prior to approving a rezoning plan. Greater community engagement in developing any rezoning plan, especially greater outreach to the Spanish-speaking community. The Upper Manhattan Interfaith Leaders Coalition is not opposed in principle to development, but we argue that you to consider community input and ensure that improvements are made, especially in terms of affordability, infrastructure, and community engagement. Okay.
Dear Ms. Brewer, I write to object to the overly dense zoning currently proposed by the EDC for Inwood. 30-story buildings on a riverfront and 16-story buildings on the main thoroughfares will overdevelop the area, creating congestion and massive influx of people. The neighborhood is essentially a peninsula with only 3 ways in and out. The current plan will drive growth that will overwhelm the streets, the parks, and the transportation infrastructure. It will drive low-income people from the neighborhood because landlords will sell properties to cash in on the economic bonanza produced for developers by the EDC plan. The plan does not address these concerns. The provision for low-income housing are full of holes. Further, it is only an economic development plan. There are no provisions for public spaces, performance venues, artistic venues, or a neighborhood center. Commercial space will be abundant, plenty to buy, but nothing to enrich the cultural and artistic needs of the community. As we have indicated in our previous remarks to the EDC, we are a society, and urban planners, as a professional group, know what makes vibrant, productive communities. It is not 30-story buildings and big box stores. It is human-scale development, public spaces, walkable neighborhoods, nature, local businesses that meet everyday needs of the people living there. Development is inevitable. Let this neighborhood be an exemplar of enlightened development on a human scale. Send EDC back to the drawing board. Give us a reasonable plan, not a push for overdevelopment and commercialism that will turn our livable communities into a monolithic locus for urban anarchy. Fred Matzner and Jacqueline Merrill. Thank you.
Ok, buenas tardes. Yo no estoy de acuerdo, mi nombre es Guillermo Rodríguez, yo no estoy de acuerdo con la rezonificación del área de Diamond con todo, porque eso es una navaja de doble filo. Ahora, yo sí estoy de acuerdo en que en la biblioteca se hagan viviendas asequibles a toda la gente que son de bajos recursos. Yo, en este sentido, lo que van a hacer con nosotros es irnos alejando más de toda la gente y van a ir cerrándonos los pasos a toda la gente latina y abriéndole los pasos a la gente blanquita, y eso no estamos de acuerdo. Debemos de luchar más por la educación de todos nosotros.
Hi, Manhattan Borough President, Mrs. Brewer. My name is Naima Silver. I am a longtime resident of Inwood for over 20 years. I would like to make a proposal. Being that rezoning will have long-term effects on our community, I would like to propose that we all vote no, number one. Number two, that a moratorium is established where there can be no rezoning proposal brought to the table for about 5, maybe 6 years. Number three, the reason for this is so that during that time, we can actually analyze how rezoning has impacted other communities in the city. And so we gather data, building a coalition with grassroots organizations, CBOs, private and public sector. And so we gather that information, analyze it, and then we see if the rezoning in other communities has actually delivered on its promises in terms of affordable housing and how it would help the communities. And then if we see that that in fact has been the case, then we can move forward in starting the process of taking proposals for rezoning again after the moratorium. This is something that is going to be deeply impactful for the long term, and we shouldn't be rushing. Why are we rushing it? And so you are very powerful. You can vote no, and together as a community, we could sway the rest of the stakeholders to vote no as well. We need to be thoughtful in this. There's no need to rush, and we don't have to frame it as rezoning is the only tool available. It is not. We can also hold ourselves accountable and our elected officials accountable to actually put forth the legislation that's necessary to protect our tenants, our small businesses. So that's my proposal. How about we vote no and establish a moratorium, analyze the data, and then check back in a few years. Thank you.